Your brother is so hot. Too bad you look nothing like him, Marissa sighed, scrolling through her phone while I loaded the dishwasher. The kitchen light cast harsh shadows across her perfectly contoured face, making her look like a stranger. I paused, a plate halfway to the rack. Your sister isn't bad either. Her head snapped up, eyes blazing. Are you sleeping with Lana? How dare you even think about her that way? The accusation hung in the air like smoke. I'd been married to Marissa Turner for 8 years, and I knew her tells. The way she clutched her phone protectively. The defensive anger that came too quick, too sharp. The projection. I'm not sleeping with anyone except my wife, I said, meeting her glare. Though apparently, that's more than I can say for you. She stood abruptly, chair scraping against the hardwood. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, Marissa. Absolutely nothing. But something had shifted. The careful balance we'd maintained, her cutting remarks about my average looks, my flat responses, the slow erosion of respect disguised as playful banter, had finally tipped over the edge. My name is Caleb Turner. I'm 40 years old, a commercial insurance adjuster for Coastal Maine Insurance, and I've spent the last decade learning that the most dangerous people are the ones who smile while they destroy you. Marissa worked as a luxury real estate staging consultant, transforming empty houses into magazine-perfect fantasies for wealthy buyers. She was good at creating illusions, making things appear more valuable than they actually were. I should have realized she'd been practicing on our marriage. The next morning, Mrs. Graham from next door cornered me while I scraped ice off my windshield. Eleanor Graham was 73, a retired librarian with a police scanner collection and an encyclopedic knowledge of neighborhood drama. Caleb, dear, she said, clutching her coffee mug like a weapon. I hope you don't mind me mentioning, but I saw Marissa with that developer fellow again yesterday. Brentley something or other, the one with the Tesla. My scraper stopped moving. Oh? They were in his car for quite a while, parked right there on Maple Street, bold as brass. I wouldn't normally say anything, but... She trailed off, studying my face. But what, Mrs. Graham? Well, they weren't looking at house plans, if you catch my drift. I caught her drift perfectly. That evening, Marissa announced she'd be working late on a challenging staging project downtown. She kissed my cheek with the same enthusiasm she'd show a distant relative, grabbed her overnight bag, since when did staging require overnight bags, and left in a cloud of expensive perfume. I sat in our living room, surrounded by the carefully curated furniture Marissa had chosen to reflect our lifestyle brand. Everything matched. Everything had a purpose. Everything was fake. My phone buzzed with a text from my younger brother Sam. Beer tonight? You look like you need it. Sam Turner was everything I wasn't. 6'2", naturally charming, the kind of guy who could sell ice to Eskimos. He ran a small construction business and had an opinion about everything, especially my marriage. Marissa's working late again, I texted back. Again? Dude, that's like the 4th time this month. I stared at his message, counting. He was right. When had I stopped keeping track? The Riverside Luxury Showcase was Marissa's biggest staging event of the year. She'd spent weeks preparing the downtown penthouse, transforming it into what she called aspirational living for discerning buyers. Translation: overpriced furniture arranged to make rich people feel even richer. I'd volunteered to help with setup, partly out of marital duty, mostly out of growing suspicion. Marissa had been increasingly secretive, guarding her phone like state secrets and deflecting questions about her schedule with accusations about my controlling behavior. The penthouse buzzed with activity. Marissa directed traffic like a general, positioning furniture and adjusting lighting while her assistant Ellie scurried around with clipboards and measuring tape. Caleb, can you move that credenza 3 inches to the left? Marissa called out, not looking up from her tablet. I was wrestling with an overpriced piece of furniture when I saw him. tall, silver-haired, wearing a suit that cost more than my monthly salary. He walked through the front door like he owned the place, which, I realized with a sick feeling, he probably did. "Brentley." Marissa's voice changed completely, becoming warm and musical. "You're early." Brentley Dale. I recognized him now from Marissa's social media posts, always tagged as client or business partner. He was 38, divorced, and according to his LinkedIn profile, specialized in luxury residential development and investment opportunities. I watched them interact from across the room. The way Marissa touched his arm while explaining her design choices. How he leaned in close, supposedly to hear her better over the noise. The inside jokes that made them both laugh a little too loudly. "Excuse me, are you with the catering company?" I turned to find a young woman with a name tag that read, Jessica Riverside Events. "No, I'm Marissa's husband." Jessica's expression shifted to something between pity and embarrassment. "Oh, I'm sorry, She introduced that gentleman as her partner, so I assumed. My stomach dropped. Her business partner? Yes, probably. I should get back to work. But the damage was done. I watched Marissa and Brentley slip away from the main crowd, heading toward the back office. They moved like people who knew each other's rhythms, who had done this before. I followed at a distance, stopping outside the partially closed office door. Their voices were low, intimate. "Can't keep doing this," Marissa was saying. "Why not? He doesn't suspect anything." "Caleb's not stupid, Brent. He's been asking questions." "So, what's he going to do about it?" Their laughter felt like a physical blow. I backed away, my mind racing. 8 years of marriage, and this was how it ended, with my wife and her lover joking about my ignorance. The evening wound down with champagne toasts and business card exchanges. I helped load equipment into Marissa's car, playing the dutiful husband while my world crumbled around me. "Great event tonight," I said as we drove home. Marissa stared out the window, already somewhere else. "That developer seemed interested. Brentley, was it?" Her shoulders tensed slightly. "He's a good client, very professional." "I'm sure he is." Back home, Marissa headed straight for the shower while I sat in my study, staring at my computer screen. Professional curiosity and years of investigating insurance fraud had taught me to follow paper trails. Brentley Dale wasn't hard to research. His company, Dale Luxury Properties, had been featured in several local magazines. Divorced 2 years ago. No children. A penthouse address in the historic district and a reputation for aggressive business tactics. I was about to close the browser when I remembered something. Earlier that evening, while helping Jessica clean up, I'd found an iPad left behind on the catering table. "Whose is this?" I'd asked. "Not ours. Maybe one of the guests dropped it?" I'd slipped it into my jacket pocket, intending to ask Marissa about it later. Now, sitting in my study, I powered it on. The device wasn't password protected. The photo library opened automatically, synced to someone's iCloud account. Someone who took a lot of selfies. The first few photos were innocent enough. Marissa at various staging sites, professional shots of completed projects. Then the timeline shifted to 3 weeks ago. Hotel room selfies. Marissa and Brentley, champagne glasses raised, her head on his shoulder. The metadata showed they were taken at the Harborview Hotel, the same weekend Marissa had claimed to be at a staging conference in Boston. I scrolled further back. More hotels, more intimate photos, dinner dates at expensive restaurants I'd never been to. A timeline of deception stretching back 6 months. My hands shook as I forwarded the photos to my personal email account. Evidence. Cold, digital proof of what I'd suspected, but hoped wasn't true. Marissa emerged from the bathroom in her silk robe, hair wrapped in a towel. "You're still up," she said, not quite meeting my eyes. "Just finishing some work." She kissed the top of my head, a gesture that had once felt loving but now seemed like performance. Don't stay up too late. I waited until I heard our bedroom door close, then spent the next 3 hours documenting everything. Bank statements showing charges at restaurants and hotels I'd never been to. Mileage logs from Marissa's car app revealing trips that didn't match her stated schedule. Credit card records for lingerie purchases and expensive dinners for two. The evidence painted a clear picture. My wife had been living a double life, funded partly by our joint accounts, while making me feel like a paranoid fool for noticing the obvious signs. By sunrise, I had a plan. I didn't sleep. Instead, I sat in our kitchen, drinking coffee and watching the sun rise over our carefully manicured neighborhood. Marissa's staging aesthetic had infected our home. Everything looked perfect and felt empty. She came downstairs at 7:30, already dressed for success in a tailored blazer and heels that clicked against the hardwood like a countdown timer. "You're up early," she said, pouring herself coffee from the pot I'd made. "Couldn't sleep." She checked her phone, scrolling through messages with the focused attention she used to reserve for me. "I have 3 showings today, then dinner with a potential client. I'll be late again." "Brentley?" Her hand froze on her coffee mug. "What?" "Your dinner. Is it with Brentley Dale?" "Why would you ask that?" I reached for the iPad I'd left on the counter and opened the photo library. The first image, Marissa and Brentley sharing champagne in a hotel room, filled the screen. The color drained from her face. "Where did you get that?" "Does it matter?" She set down her coffee with trembling hands. "Caleb, I can explain." "I'm sure you can. You're very good at explanations." I swiped to the next photo. Dinner at Chez Laurent, the French restaurant she'd claimed was too expensive for our budget when I'd suggested it for our anniversary. Then another, a weekend getaway to the coast while she'd supposedly been visiting her sick aunt. "This isn't what it looks like," she said, but her voice had lost its conviction. "Really? Because it looks like my wife has been screwing her client and charging the hotels to our joint credit card." Marissa's composure cracked. Tears started flowing, but they felt calculated, strategic. "It just happened, Caleb. We were working closely together, spending long hours on the project, and things got complicated." 6 months of complications? "You don't understand the pressure I'm under. The competition in my field is brutal, and Brentley offered me opportunities. I bet he did." She flinched at my tone. "This doesn't have to ruin everything. We can work through this. Counseling, therapy, whatever you want." I closed the iPad and looked at my wife, really looked at her. The woman I'd fallen in love with had been ambitious but kind, driven but loyal. The person standing in my kitchen was a stranger wearing her face. "I've already spoken to a lawyer," I said quietly. "What?" "Yesterday, after the showcase, I called David Morrison. You remember David? He handled the Hendricks case for my company last year. Very thorough, very discreet." Marissa's tears stopped as if I'd flipped a switch. "You can't be serious." "I've documented everything. The hotels, the restaurants, the unexplained expenses. Maine is a no-fault divorce state, but financial misconduct during marriage affects asset division. David was very educational about that." "You bastard." Her mask finally slipped completely. "You self-righteous, boring little man. Do you think I enjoyed pretending to be happy with you? Do you think I liked coming home to your mediocre life and your pathetic jokes?" "There she is," I said, "the real Marissa." "You want to know the truth? Brentley isn't the first. He's just the first one worth leaving you for." The words should have hurt more than they did. Instead, I felt something like relief. The woman I'd been mourning, the wife I thought I'd lost, had never existed at all. "Pack a bag," I said. "I want you out by tonight." "This is my house too." "Actually, it's not. I checked with David about that as well. The house was purchased with my inheritance from my grandmother, before we were married. You have no legal claim to it." Marissa stared at me like I'd grown a second head. You planned this. I learned from the best. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door, then turned back with a venomous smile. You think you've won something? Wait until everyone knows what kind of man you really are. Wait until your precious brother and your work friends hear about how you drove me away with your paranoia and control issues. Good luck with that, I said. I'll be sure to share the photos. The door slammed hard enough to rattle the windows. I sat in the sudden silence, finishing my coffee and planning my next move. My phone rang 20 minutes later. Sam's name appeared on the screen. Dude, what the hell did you do to Marissa? She just called me crying, saying you threw her out over some misunderstanding. It wasn't a misunderstanding. She said you accused her of cheating based on some paranoid delusion. Come on, man. Marissa loves you. I closed my eyes. Sam, I have photos. Silence. What kind of photos? The kind that end marriages. Shit. Are you okay? I'm better than I've been in months. Where is she now? Probably with her boyfriend. I don't really care. Jesus, Caleb, I'm sorry. I had no idea. But something in his tone suggested otherwise, a hesitation that made me wonder how much my brother actually knew. The Knot was the kind of bar that attracted people who wanted to drink without pretense. Located in the old fishing district, it served beer in bottles and whiskey neat, with a clientele that included dock workers, insurance adjusters, and anyone else who preferred honest conversation to polite lies. I found Jasper Williams at his usual spot at the end of the bar, nursing a Budweiser and reading yesterday's newspaper. Jasper worked in claims investigation with me, a 55-year-old former cop with a bullshit detector that could spot fraud from 3 counties away. You look like hell, he said as I sat down beside him. Feel worse than I look. The bartender, a grizzled man named Pete who'd been serving drinks since before I was born, slid a beer across the scarred wood surface without being asked. Marissa? Jasper asked. I nodded. How'd you know? Saw her last week at Chez Laurent with some silver-haired guy in an expensive suit. They weren't discussing insurance policies, if you know what I mean. Why didn't you tell me? Would you have believed me? He had a point. I would have made excuses, rationalized what he'd seen, convinced myself there was an innocent explanation. People believe what they want to believe, especially about the people they love. So what's the plan? Jasper asked. Divorce, asset protection, moving on with my life. That's it. What else would there be? Jasper studied me over his beer bottle. In my experience, people who get played like you did usually want some payback. I'm not looking for revenge, Jas. I just want out. But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't entirely true. The humiliation burned. Not just the cheating, but the way Marissa had made me feel crazy for noticing the obvious signs, the gaslighting, the casual cruelty of her comments about my appearance, my career, my worth as a man. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Brentley. I showed the message to Jasper, who snorted with amusement. Bold of him. What do you think he wants? Damage control. Guys like that don't like loose ends. 20 minutes later, Brentley Dale walked into the Knot like he was slumming it for charity. His perfectly pressed khakis and polo shirt stood out among the work clothes and faded jeans of the regular clientele. He spotted me immediately and approached with the confident stride of a man accustomed to getting his way. Caleb Turner? Depends who's asking. Brentley Dale. I think we should have a conversation. Jasper made no move to leave, which seemed to irritate Brentley. This is a private matter. Nothing's private in here, Pete called from behind the bar. You want privacy? Go to a hotel. Oh wait, you already tried that. A few regulars chuckled. Small towns had no secrets, especially not from bartenders. Brentley's jaw tightened, but he sat down on the empty stool beside me. Look, I know this situation is complicated. Complicated? I turned to face him fully. That's an interesting word choice. I would have gone with adultery or betrayal, but I suppose complicated has a nice ring to it. There's no need for hostility. We're all adults here. Are we? Because adults usually don't sneak around behind their spouses' backs. Brentley signaled Pete for a drink, probably to buy himself time to think. Pete ignored him completely. Marissa and I have developed genuine feelings for each other, Brentley said finally. I know the timing isn't ideal, but these things happen. These things happen, I repeated, like earthquakes or tax audits. I'm trying to be reasonable here. How generous of you. Jasper was grinning into his beer bottle, enjoying the show. A few other patrons had stopped their conversations to listen. What I'm proposing, Brentley continued, is that we handle this like civilized men. Marissa deserves a clean start, and frankly, so do you. I'm prepared to make sure the financial transition is smooth. You want to buy me off? I want to make sure everyone gets what they need. I took a long drink of my beer, considering his offer. What did you have in mind? 50,000, cash, in exchange for a quick, quiet divorce with minimal drama. The bar had gone completely silent. Even Pete had stopped wiping down glasses. 50,000, I said slowly. That's generous. Brentley smiled, thinking he'd won. I'm a fair man. You know what's funny about that offer? What? It tells me exactly how much Marissa is worth to you. And more importantly, it tells me how much you think this scandal could cost you if it goes public. His smile faltered. I'm not sure what you mean. Your ex-wife, Brentley, the one you divorced 2 years ago? I did some research. Turns out she cited repeated infidelity in her filing. Seems like you have a pattern. That's irrelevant to this situation. Is it? Because I'm wondering what your current business partners would think about that pattern, especially the ones who are married. Brentley's face had gone pale. You're threatening me. I'm just making conversation, like civilized men do. I stood up, leaving my half-finished beer on the bar. Thanks for the offer, Brentley, but I think I'll handle this my own way. You're making a mistake. Probably. But it's my mistake to make. As I headed for the door, Pete called out, Your money's no good here, fancy man, but Caleb's drinks are on the house for the rest of the month. The entire bar erupted in laughter and applause. I walked out feeling better than I had in weeks. 3 days later, Marissa's carefully constructed world began to collapse. It started with a phone call from Ellie, her business partner and closest friend. I was at work, reviewing a suspicious fire claim, when my desk phone rang. Caleb, it's Ellie. We need to talk. About what? About the photos you sent to everyone in Marissa's professional network. I hadn't sent any photos to anyone, but I didn't correct her assumption. And you've destroyed her career. The Riverside Group dropped her this morning. The Historical Society canceled their contract. She's lost 3 major clients in 2 days. That's unfortunate. Unfortunate? You vindictive bastard. You've ruined her life. I didn't ruin anything, Ellie. I just provided some clarity about the kind of person she really is. She made a mistake. She made a choice, multiple choices, over 6 months, funded with our joint money while she lied to my face every single day. Ellie's voice cracked. She's my best friend. Then maybe you should have encouraged her to act like a wife instead of enabling her affair. The line went silent. 20 minutes later, my brother Sam appeared in my office doorway. He looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight from foot to foot like he had something difficult to say. We need to talk, he said. Popular phrase this week. Come in. Sam closed the door behind him and sat down across from my desk. Marissa called me. I figured she might. She's staying at my place. That stopped me cold. What? Just temporarily, until she finds somewhere permanent. She was desperate, Caleb. Crying, broke, nowhere else to go. And you thought helping my cheating ex-wife was a good idea. She's not your ex-wife yet. And she's still family. No, Sam. She's not family. She stopped being family the moment she decided to screw her client in hotel rooms charged to my credit card. Sam flinched. Look, I know she messed up. Messed up? She committed adultery and theft. Those aren't mistakes, they're crimes. You're being dramatic. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a folder thick with printed bank statements, credit card records, and hotel receipts. Am I? Because according to these documents, Marissa spent $8,000 of our money on her affair. Dinners, hotels, gifts for her boyfriend. That's not drama, Sam. That's fraud. She said you were controlling, that you monitored her spending. I monitored our joint accounts after I discovered she was stealing from them. Wouldn't you? Sam looked at the folder like it might bite him. She said the photos were taken out of context. Really? What context makes hotel room selfies with another man appropriate for a married woman? Maybe if you'd been a better husband. I stood up so fast my chair rolled backward into the wall. Get out! Caleb, get out of my office, now! She's just trying to rebuild her life. Then she can rebuild it somewhere else, with someone else's help, not yours. Sam stood slowly, his face flushed with anger. You know what? Maybe Marissa was right about you. Maybe you are a controlling, bitter little man who drives people away. Maybe. But I'm not an adulterer or a thief. She's family, Caleb. No, Sam. You're family, or you were, until you chose to help the woman who betrayed me instead of supporting your own brother. The words hung in the air between us like a challenge. Sam stared at me for a long moment, then shook his head. You're going to regret this. Probably. But not as much as I regret trusting either of you. After he left, I sat in my office, staring at the closed door. In the span of a week, I'd lost my wife, my marriage, and now my relationship with my only sibling. The collateral damage was spreading like wildfire. But I wasn't done yet. That evening, I drove to the Knot and found exactly what I was looking for. A crowd of regulars who knew everyone's business and weren't shy about sharing it. Jasper was there, along with Pete, Mrs. Graham, and half a dozen others who'd lived in this town long enough to remember when it was just a fishing village. Heard your brother's got a house guest, Pete said as I sat down. News travels fast. Everything travels fast in a town this size, especially gossip about cheating wives and the fools who help them. Mrs. Graham leaned forward conspiratorially. I saw her moving boxes into Sam's place this afternoon, bold as brass, like she had every right to be there. Maybe she does, I said. Maybe they deserve each other. What's that supposed to mean? Asked Tommy Chen, a lobster man who'd known Sam since high school. I pulled out my phone and opened the photo gallery I'd been curating for the past few days. Not the intimate hotel pictures, I wasn't cruel enough to share those publicly. But the restaurant receipts, the timeline of lies, the evidence of financial deception. It means my brother is harboring a woman who stole $8,000 from our joint accounts to fund her affair with a married developer. It means he's chosen to help someone who committed adultery and fraud instead of supporting his own family. I passed the phone around the bar. The regulars studied the evidence with the focused attention of a jury reviewing exhibits. Jesus, Tommy muttered. This is all documented? Bank records don't lie. And Sam knows about this? He knows everything. He just doesn't care. Mrs. Graham handed back my phone with a disgusted expression. That poor boy. I remember when he was little, always looking up to you, wanting to be just like his big brother. Now look at him. People change, I said. People make choices, Pete corrected. And your brother made a bad one. By closing time, the story had spread to every corner of the Knot. By morning, it would be all over town. Sam's construction business depended on his reputation in the community, and harboring an adulteress wasn't going to help his standing with the local families who made up his client base. I drove home through empty streets, past houses where normal families were sleeping peacefully, unaware that their neighbors' lives were falling apart in real time. The house felt different now, cleaner somehow, like an infection had been removed. My phone buzzed with a text from Sam. "You're destroying everything." I typed back, "I learned from the best." The confrontation came on a Friday night, 2 weeks after Marissa had moved out. I was at the Knot, playing pool with Jasper and enjoying the first peaceful evening I'd had in months, when the door burst open with enough force to rattle the windows. Sam stormed in, followed by Marissa and Brentley. The trio looked like they'd been drinking, and not in a celebratory way. Marissa's makeup was smeared, Sam's shirt was wrinkled, and Brentley kept checking his phone like he was expecting bad news. The bar went silent. Even the jukebox seemed to sense the tension and cut off mid-song. "You snake," Sam said, pointing at me across the room. "You cost me 3 jobs this week." I chalked my cue stick calmly. "Did I? Don't play dumb. You know exactly what you did." "I told the truth. If that cost you business, maybe you should reconsider your choice of house guests." Marissa stepped forward, her face twisted with rage. "You vindictive bastard. You've destroyed my career, turned my friends against me, and now you're going after Sam? What kind of man does that?" "The kind who doesn't appreciate being stolen from." "I never stole anything." I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a printed bank statement, unfolding it slowly. "Chez Laurent, March 15th, $240 for dinner. Our anniversary was in February and I was working late that night. Who did you have dinner with, Marissa?" "That was a business meal. Harborview Hotel, March 20th through 22nd. $460 for a weekend getaway while you told me you were visiting your sick aunt. Funny thing about that, I called your aunt. She hasn't been sick in years." Brentley stepped forward, trying to look intimidating. "You need to stop harassing her." "Harassing? I'm just reading bank statements. Public records, really, since they'll be part of the divorce proceedings." "You can't prove anything," Marissa said, but her voice lacked conviction. I pulled out my phone and opened the photo gallery. "Actually, I can prove everything. Would you like me to show everyone the pictures you took? I've got hotel selfies, restaurant dates, even a few from that weekend trip to the coast. Very thorough documentation of your affair." The color drained from her face. "You wouldn't." "Try me." Sam grabbed my arm. "Enough. This has gone too far." I shrugged him off. "Has it? Because from where I stand, it's just getting started." "What's that supposed to mean?" Brentley asked. I smiled, feeling a cold satisfaction spread through my chest. "It means I've been busy. See, insurance investigation teaches you a lot about following paper trails and connecting dots. And the dots in your case, Brentley, paint a very interesting picture." "I don't know what you're talking about." "Dale Luxury Properties? Your company. I did some digging into your business practices, your financial backing, your client relationships. Turns out you have a pattern of mixing business with pleasure, don't you?" Brentley's confident facade cracked slightly. "That's irrelevant." "Is it? Because I found 3 other women, married clients, who had very similar experiences with your professional services. And I found their husbands. Interesting conversations, those." "You're bluffing." "Am I? Why don't you check your phone? I believe you've been getting some calls from concerned business partners today." Brentley pulled out his phone, his face going pale as he scrolled through missed calls and messages. "You see," I continued, "reputation is everything in the luxury real estate business. And when word gets out that a developer has a habit of seducing married clients and breaking up families, well, that tends to make people nervous about doing business with him." "You bastard," Marissa whispered. "No, Marissa. I'm just a man who got tired of being played for a fool." Sam stepped between us. "This isn't you, Caleb. This isn't who you are." "You're right. The old me would have suffered in silence, made excuses for both of you, convinced himself that somehow this was all his fault. But that man was weak. That man let people walk all over him because he was afraid of being alone." I looked around the bar, at the faces watching our drama unfold. "But I'm not afraid anymore. I'm not ashamed. I'm not the one who broke vows or betrayed family or built a business on seducing other men's wives. Brentley's phone rang. He looked at the screen, and his face went ashen. I have to take this. He stepped outside, leaving Marissa and Sam to face me alone. You've destroyed everything, Marissa said, tears streaming down her face. My career, my relationship, my future. Was it worth it? Ask me in a year. I loved you once. No, you didn't. You loved the idea of me, the stable husband, the steady income, the respectable life. But you never loved me. If you had, you wouldn't have been able to do what you did. Sam shook his head. She made a mistake, Caleb. People make mistakes. And people face consequences for those mistakes. That's how the world works, Sam. Or at least, that's how my world works now. Brentley returned, his face grim. We need to leave. Now. What happened? Marissa asked. 3 of my major investors just pulled out. My business partner wants an emergency meeting tomorrow morning, and my ex-wife's lawyer called. Apparently, someone sent her copies of hotel receipts and photos that could affect our custody arrangement. All 3 of them stared at me. I raised my beer in a mock toast. Consequences, I said simply. They left without another word, walking out into the cold night air like refugees fleeing a disaster. The bar remained silent for a long moment after the door closed. Then Pete started to clap. Slowly at first, then faster, until the entire bar erupted in applause. Jasper slapped me on the back, Mrs. Graham raised her glass in salute, and Tommy Chen whistled appreciatively. Damn, Jasper said. Remind me never to cross you. I finished my beer and set the empty bottle on the bar. Don't worry, I only bite back when someone bites me first. 6 months later, the divorce was final. Marissa got nothing. The prenup I'd insisted on before our marriage, combined with her documented financial misconduct, left her with no claim to our assets. She moved to Portland, where she found work as a retail clerk, her staging career effectively over. Sam's construction business never recovered from the scandal. Turns out that small-town families don't like hiring contractors who harbor adulterers, especially when those contractors choose loyalty to unfaithful spouses over their own family. He sold the business at a loss and moved to Boston, where nobody knew his story. Brentley Dale lost his development company, his investors, and his reputation. Last I heard, he was working as a real estate agent in New Hampshire, selling starter homes to young couples who had no idea about his history. As for me, I kept the house, kept my job, and kept my dignity. I learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. It's simply refusing to let people treat you like a fool. Mrs. Graham still brings me neighborhood gossip over coffee. Jasper and I still play pool at the Knot on Friday nights. Pete still serves my drinks with a knowing smile and a nod of respect. And when people ask me about forgiveness, about moving on, about being the bigger man, I tell them the truth. Some people don't deserve forgiveness. Some actions can't be excused. And sometimes, the biggest man in the room is the one who refuses to be small. I learned to bite back, and I discovered that I have very sharp teeth.